So, yeah, glad you all could join us. We have got a exciting agenda for today. We've got Derek Lomas and Vicent Bosch joining us today to give presentations on their projects. But before that, we wanted to give a few um, quick announcements. I know a lot of you have probably submitted proposals for the Fantastic Futures Conference coming up in September here in Washington, D.C. We're all excited for you all to join us. We were supposed to have originally we were supposed to have the announcements and decisions sent out last week, but we got a record-breaking number of proposal submissions this year. Had a few glitches in getting those sent out to reviewers, but we are wrapping it up this week. We'll get those out, and hopefully you'll see that soon. And then we'll then be posting the full schedule and registration coming up in July. Is there anything I missed on that, Keith?
No, I think open for the group on announcements. Otherwise, any announcements or updates from the working groups anyone wants to bring up? I'll bring up one. The teaching and learning working group is in a bit of a transition point right now as well and looking for a chair. So if anyone is interested in learning more about the teaching and learning group, which can be directed in a number of different directions right now, I think there's topics on the table ranging from how to develop shared curriculum for learning about AI to assessing sort of readiness or maturity and perceptions of AI use, but really an open field right now. So if you're interested in volunteering as chair for that group, please reach out. Any other announcements from other working groups? Or in general announcements, anyone else wants to share? Okay, great. Well, I think we are up to 44 participants of the 50 plus that registered, so we're in good shape to get things started with our speakers. Mike, do you want to start introductions?
Sure. So, I don't have much more than is on the community call page where you all registered. But first, we're going to hear from Derek Lomas, who's from the Delft University of Technology, and I'll hand it off directly so that I can let him give his own proper introduction and then talk about his project, the source library.
Great, thank you. I'm really happy to be chatting with this community. I heard about it not so many months ago from the TU Delft library team. And then about 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to the IIIF conference. Is anyone familiar with this conference? It was in Leida, and it was so much fun. Oh, hey, there's Ben. Great. Yeah, so this was really a blast. And so I guess what I can say is I'm going to start off just by showing a brand new site from the Embassy of the Free Mind. And I'm joined here today with Maria Marquez, a colleague of mine at the Embassy of the Free Mind. And the thing that's been really interesting for me lately is, I'm at a technical university, engineering university. I teach AI and design, and I'm finding that in this small humanities-oriented organization, there is a much greater velocity of AI engagement than in my great big technical university. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, and I'm sure you guys can imagine what some of them may be. But in a small organization where you can have sort of personal trust networks and figure out the possibility space, you can move very quickly. So when this launched, it's a beautiful website. I'm really, really happy about it. It launched about, 3 weeks ago, Maria? Something like that. And this is based on a collection of books called the Bibliotheca Philosophica Hermetica, which has a UNESCO designation, a Memory of the World, and it also has a Guinness record for the largest library devoted to magic and mysticism, which I think is pretty fantastic. So it's a bit of a real world Hogwarts. Now, within the collection, there is a substantial portion. So we've got 2,222 of these books that have been digitized, courtesy of Dan Brown of the Da Vinci Code, who did a lot of his research based on the Bibliotheca Philosophica Hermetica. There's obviously a lot more works here, but the ones that have been digitized are really the core of the collection, and they're also all in the public domain. Now, for any of these different books, you can go in and see them here in the digital collection. And if you click on it, you'll see the original page, and you can see the OCR, if it's even appropriate to call it OCR these days, and the translation. And you'll see the translation not just with the translation, but with some notes that you can turn off. But those notes are pretty helpful because, when reading these works, there's often a lot of context that a person doesn't necessarily have when they're reading. Now, if I zoom back out here, because that's sort of the basics, and I go to this collection, I'll just tell a brief little story here, which is we were waiting a long time to get access to these books. They were being managed by a database system, and it was getting difficult. And that's when I discovered the IIIF, because we had decided that we wanted to make a go at creating a system for book translation. And maybe I'll back up just a little bit, which is to explain some of my interest in this space. So I work as a design philosopher, and a lot of my interests at Delft has to do with topics like harmony and resonance in the history of philosophy, but also as they manifest in design. Things like vibes are now a term of art in AI. They're very important for design, but they're a little bit esoteric. Things like resonance can feel a little bit wooey or magical, and there's something about that that's appealing to me as a scientist to unpack those terms, and particularly the term harmony. I spent a lot of time trying to unpack this and understand its really rich history in both the West and in the Chinese and Eastern traditions. And I got connected to the Embassy of the Free Mind, and when you walk into the embassy, there's a statue to Marsilio Ficino, and he is the person who was hired by the Medici to translate Plato from the Greek into Latin. He was also hired to translate the Neoplatonic tradition and the Hermetica, that is a wisdom tradition that comes from Egypt and had a very large impact during the Renaissance. And so there's this statue to Marsilio Ficino, and he was in my daughter's history book as well, for his role in helping to spark the Renaissance, which to some significant degree had to do with the accessibility of ancient Greek wisdom in a Latin speaking world of scholarship. And I realized I couldn't read Ficino's own books. So many of his books had not been translated out of Latin into English. A number of them were, but I was particularly interested in one book called De Mysteries, which translates to The Mysteries, of course. And the last chapter of that book was called De Voluptate, and it was a book about the nature of pleasure. And, call me crazy, but I wanted to read what peak Renaissance humanism had to say about pleasure. And I couldn't. And so I worked with Alice Ahern of Oxford University to translate this book. And towards the end of that process, GPT-4 came out. And it became clear that AI was really good at translating. Maybe not as good as Alice, but it was something where, well, then the other thing I learned was that only 3% of the Renaissance had been translated out of Latin into English. Now that's going to be obvious to Neo-Latin scholars, but there's not a lot of Neo-Latin scholars. And at the current rate of translating Neo-Latin into English, it would take another 12,000 years to get all these works into English. So, we had this somewhat ambitious goal of translating the Renaissance. And while waiting for the books from the embassy, we got started with the IIIF books, and we started seeing what other libraries were making available. Because there's so many wonderful books that are made available, and the scans are all public domain, but we credit all the libraries. So, for instance, if I go into the Women of the Secret Tradition, the Embassy of the Free Mind focuses on things like secret societies and mysticism, all this really juicy stuff. And so if I click into this, I'll demonstrate this because I really enjoy being able to look through these books by the pictures. And so, I can click on this and go straight to the page of the book where it comes from. So we're using AI to extract the images. And then if I click edit over here, you'll see that we've got this whole XML-based approach that allows us to provide summaries of the page, provide notes on the page, then if I come out over here, I can look for something like, I don't know what is, I do have some favorites in this one, but this sounds pretty interesting. I'm not familiar with this one. This one's already in English, so not everything is translated, but that's also instructive, because one of the things that's been really fascinating about this whole project is that when you make all of these books OCR and translation available, and everything is open source, AGPL3, the same open source as the Internet Archive, and it's all Creative Commons share alike, so everything is totally open, and it's accessible via MCP with Claude or Claude Code. And when you can ground AI to source texts, it's just awesome. Because a person can be an expert in Latin, Neo-Latin. A person can be an expert in classical Chinese. A person can be expert in Sanskrit. But I don't know a single person on earth that's an expert in all three of those. And if you're trying to dive into something like alchemy, or a concept like harmony, it shows up in every tradition. And to be able to compare and contrast and make sense of a concept across traditions is really, really fun. And so the hope with all of this is that we can open up humanities scholarship, not just to humanities scholars, but to humanities students. Because the excitement of a new mystery, like a lot of people have this idea that, the past has all been processed, all the good stuff that was good, we've put into summaries, and you can read those summaries in books. And my experience is really different from that. I found that we've hardly processed our past. There's so many things that we have not really made sense of. And to be able to use AI grounded to the source is really, really powerful. This was the motto, ad fontes, of the founder of the Embassy of the Free Mind, the Bibliotheca Philosophica Hermetica, Joost Ritman. And it's really in his honor today because he passed away last week. And it's something where he's really devoted his life to making this material open and accessible, and we're just really happy that we can continue that mission and do so in a way that I'm hoping here today can be both inspirational, but also taking some of the flack. Because it's difficult working with AI. It's not perfect, and we're not treating any of this as a critical addition. It's not something where we're saying that our translations are as good as other translations, and that's one of the reasons why we always link to existing translations on the source books of any translations we provide. But because because it's AI, we're expecting that we're going to translate this whole library multiple times. Right now, the thing that really made this possible was Gemini 3. Gemini 3 was where the transcription from Latin and other languages became reliable enough that it was hardly distinguishable from human transcribers. And that said, there's still an enormous amount of work to do. So we're really trying to set this up in such a way where it can serve as a sort of substrate or zone of work for the people that are so central to the existing stewardship and the stewardship of the knowledge going on into the future. So there are a few. If there's one more thing that I'd share on this before I close down, it's called the librarian. I really enjoyed working with Claude Code or Claude MCP, and this is a freely available research agent where you can type things in. You can see what celestial battles and Anthroper aliens, or you could see what other folks have been putting in here. But you can just put something in, like something that I've found exciting. Or my background's in cognitive science, and so I often like to see how new cognitive science concepts were interpreted in the past. So I might say something like, distributed cognition is a recent idea. What are some historical precedents? Spelled that, but we're okay. And what it's going to do is it's going to use all the embeddings in the library to start searching through this material. And it's not just going to give its typical AI hallucinations, however accurate they may occasionally be. It's going to link me to particular pages. And this, I totally love this experience where I can be looking at AI, but then I can be going back to the source. And then I can, continue. Averos has some very interesting things to say about that, so I can continue the conversation this way. We have a very nice search. Again, it's all embedding based, both on the images and the text. Would be very happy to take any questions, and appreciate the opportunity to share this effort with all of you.
Great. Thank you so much, Derek. Does anyone have any questions? You can either put them in the chat or feel free to raise your hand or unmute directly. We have a small enough group.
Hey, Saskia. So now that I see Saskia on the screen, I'm just going to say that we took a number of really lovely images through IIIF from the Rijksmuseum, because we realized that the sources are not just the books, but also the images. And the first book we translated was from Cornelius Drebbel, who's a Dutch alchemist that is very close to my heart. And he was also an artist. He was an engraver. And I realized that if we wanted to make sense of all of his works, we needed to not just look at his books, but also his pictures. And he made a very beautiful set of women teaching men the sciences. So thanks for
Yeah.
all the beautiful images.
I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes.
Hi, Derek. I just logged in when you were already talking, so I'm not really sure what the whole presentation was. But you were in the source library. You're also referring to different libraries, etc., etc. And I got the impression that there was still work to do, or that's a part that
Yes.
you're still working on. Is that
There's an
correct?
enormous amount of work to do. I mean,
Okay.
this is all proof of concept. This is all beta.
Hmm.
Um, but for instance, we're 15,000 books in. There's at least 300,000 Latin books, and probably an order of magnitude more Chinese and Sanskrit manuscripts. I mean,
Hmm.
and those are Latin printed books. I mean, not even getting into the manuscripts. And that's just on the acquisition, scanning, all of that kind of work. But there's a lot of other kinds of work to do. And I'd say probably one thing that's on most people's minds is the quality. So,
Hmm.
it's one thing to do the translation, and it's another thing to assess the quality of the translation.
Hmm.
I don't trust any translation. No translation's perfect, but they're all mostly useful. But OCR can be perfect to an extent, and so
Hmm.
we've got a couple of different methods that we've been using to assess quality on both of those lines. And so
Hmm.
one area of help I think that we need is just the sort of sparring and consideration on what kind of quality is appropriate for different collections around the world.
And I think if I might add, one of the things to assess that kind of quality is a kind of transparency about the work that you're doing, and that is some part on the website that I was curious about. What do you use, Gemini 3 and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not really sure whether that is something that you talked about that is on the
Yeah,
website.
let me jump in and share something here. So if we go to this book and I click here, bibliographic info, we're going to
Hmm.
preserve all of the provenance of the book. And there are a few other places. So we've got the original IIIF manifest that's there,
Hmm.
and the holding library where we
Hmm.
drew it from, and other existing translations. Okay, this is partially what we do to assess whether a book has been translated before, because of course it's nice to translate stuff that's never been done before. This book was also, or this author was censored by the Index Librorum Prohibitorum. Since we come from the embassy, we're interested in banned books, because many of the books at the Embassy of the Free Mind have been banned, so we like to say this. There are a number of different things in the data provenance where we indicate what is coming from AI and what is not coming from AI. So,
Hmm.
for instance, well, this is saying sort of where it came from, the categories that it's in Neoplatonism, philosophy, etc. Like that came from AI. USTC ID. So that's one area of the
So
grounding.
this is object based, right? But the transparency about the whole project, and I see someone, Owen, asking something about use of Claude and where we can access that, or if we can access that. Is
Yeah,
that something that you offer as well on a page?
yeah, absolutely. So if you go to slash developers,
Ah.
then you can get an API key right away. You just ask to generate it. If you've logged in, you can just get that API key. And you can just drop that into your Claude code. And hopefully next week or so, we're going to be in the Claude connectors public directory so that people can just naturally find this stuff. But and then when you're in here, you'll see like this comes here, and if you click info, you'll see when we did this. You'll see the page info, the processing details, and we've got all the prompts and everything in the GitHub. So we're really trying to be super open on this stuff in the spirit of Yost Rittman, and also in the spirit of trying to team up with all of you guys. I mean, I'm hoping that we're putting our neck out a little bit, and I'm really open to. I can handle a lot of critique, so don't hesitate. On the critique side, there are a lot of things to critique, and on every single page, you can leave feedback. If you come down here and you click Give Feedback, I read this almost every single day, and just share something that you see off. We'll see things where translations didn't complete sometimes. Sometimes you just, we'll get notes from people where they just didn't like the translation. And, we take that into account and then we do it. And so in this way, we're trying to make like the translations more of a living thing and a community thing.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps.
Okay.
Owen, you had still a question, right?
So Owen asks about to what extent the MCP is an essential part of the epistemic apparatus. Would it be enough to just have the collections on the web? Well, it wasn't enough for me. So, the fun thing about this project is that there, like I love this stuff, and I'm not an expert. I have my own expertise, but I'm not a Neo-Latin expert. I'm fluent in all of one language. I hate to say it. And it's part of the reason that translations are so important to me, is that I can make so few of them myself. But I often dispute translations. I've often found myself disputing Loeb classical library translations. I'm like, that's not what Aristotle meant. Um, and, I love being able to get into the original language and debate these things, however accurate my arguments are. But I wanted, I found, so in some of the work I was doing, I wanted to provide some original translations, and I realized that that wasn't really possible in a scholarly setting. And that's one of the reasons why we provide for some books, in an increasing amount, we provide DOIs. So we provide DOIs for individual translations so that you can refer to that particular version of it for all time, and so that scholars can cite it. And just, I found myself using Claude so much in my own research that I wanted to make sure that Claude could read those books. And I'm also hoping, even though I hope that AI companies can fund this project to millions of dollars, because we have no funding right now, whether they do that or not, we hope that AI gets trained on the Renaissance. Because, they're trained on Reddit, and it'd be nice if the Renaissance were in there. So making this accessible to people and AI is important to me.
All right, great. I see that there are additional questions in the chat, and Derek, hopefully you can answer those in the chat, but I wanted to make sure that we have enough time for Vincent's
Thank you.
presentation as well. So thank you so much. If you can all give a nice applause emoji for Derek. Thank you. All right, and Keith, I'll hand it over to you for intro.
Professor Bosch, thanks so much for joining us from Transcriptorium to talk about mass indexing and full text search in complex manuscripts. Why don't you just dive right in? Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. First of all, I wanted to thank you all for this opportunity to be here, joined by so many experts and having this forum in order to show a bit of what we are doing inside in Transcriptorium. Also, thank you, Derek, for that lovely presentation and the work you're doing. I found it very inspirational, and it got me thinking on a bit of few ideas that I want to apply myself. So what I want to talk to you is about what we're doing at Transcriptorium, especially with our new version of the engine that we are calling Archaic, which is our document intelligence platform. Okay. Transcriptorium as a company, we come from the research group called Pattern Recognition and Human Language Technologies from the University Polytechnic of Valencia. And while we were working in a research group, we got many types of projects from the European Union and also national projects where they were asking us, hey, I want to make this collection accessible. I want to make this searchable. I want to be able to see what's inside the documents that I'm holding right now in my archive. And then the idea, the initial idea, the naive idea at that time, they weren't even working with neural networks. We were working with hidden Markov models. So you can imagine how things were at the time. There wasn't any type of hype regarding artificial intelligence of the sorts. But naively, we thought, okay, we're just going to use our models. We're going to transcribe everything and it's going to be perfect. And then the reality, the harsh reality came to us with the thing that actually no. there was actually going to be errors. The errors were going to be quite a bit. Even maybe it wouldn't make sense to generate all of the ground truth that was possible in order to actually make the model more accurate. It might not be cost effective as a research project, because at the time we were working as a research company. And the thing was that even if we were able to generate all of this training data, we were never going to be able to ensure that we were going to achieve 100% accuracy. Sure, you can get close enough in modern handwritten text, sometimes in printed text, also depending on the stages of illumination, the warping, etc., etc. But when we started talking about historical text, handwritten, with different stages of conservations, ink stains, humidity stains, problems with different types of insects and other type of animals that I have come to know that they are around there in certain archives, at least they were for a time, then it's impossible to actually be able to cover the whole ambiguity that was there in the text. But we thought, well, actually, we don't have to do that. We actually have the whole trellis, the whole graph of possible transcriptions for the text. And instead of actually searching on one and having one unique solution and then silently losing the rest of the information, we're actually going to work with the whole set of ambiguity that is there in the graph. And that is how probabilistic indexing came to be, from the actual idea that it was actually impossible to get 100% accuracy. And we weren't the ones that should be deciding for the actual user what was there written. And maybe we should give them the option of having more than one hypothesis where it makes sense, so that he would be able to decide, right? So in a way, we were already compliant with certain artificial intelligence acts that are already present regarding showing confidence scores, being able to trace back to the image, etc., etc. Here, for example, you see an example of a text that has been written in a synthetic manner, where you have the intelligence with the I, the dots not being correctly written. The I is basically touching the N, looks more like an M. The anchor is the C has been joined with the H, maybe looks like a D, maybe not. And then the N and the K, the N and the K at the end of it also has another problem because they've been joined out together. It's baby stuff in comparison to what we see generally in historical archives. But of course, all of this ambiguity already can start create problems, because maybe the unique most probable transcription is not the adequate one. Maybe one of the other alternative paths has the actual correct solution. And therefore, that's what we're doing. We're grabbing all of those solutions and actually embedding them on top of the image, as you can see here in this example. Here, for example, you can see as we hover on top of the words, sometimes the actual word is 100% accuracy. We don't want to create more noise regarding what it is. We only present more than one hypothesis when there's actually ambiguity of what it could be, especially at the end of a word or a paragraph, because cut words is something that is very usual in historical documents, but not at all habitual in modern word written documents or PDFs. Exactly. So you can see that the whole trellis that we can extract above, we can make it work and embed it on top of the image. And then with this type of information, we can actually make all of the search, all of the accuracy increase, because we are not searching on top of one unique transcription. We are going to be searching on top of all of the possible transcriptions that actually are sensible on top of this in a probabilistic manner. And this, we can actually end up searching in different types of ways. We can have the search be done in a hierarchical manner. We can present the results in a flat manner, or we can actually show you statistical values of all of the possible searches. In fact, we can even do semantic searches on top of the actual historical documents. Let me show you an example. Here, for example, we have a demonstrator for the archive platform where we have different types of collections. One is a normal paragraph of text. Another one is a set of forms. And then we have a set of tables for a census. We can do a query where we are going to be searching, for example, just a second, for any name that ends with Vila, Trabal, as surnames. We're going to use this sequence operator because we want to find them, all of the words, at the same time. Then we can launch the search, and then automatically we get that this actual sequence is found only in the collection for the tables. And you can see the results in a hierarchical manner if you want, and then actually go into each of the pages where you end up finding all of the people that have been named bilateral, as you can see here, these 3 examples. If you don't have an idea or you don't want to be searching in a hierarchical manner, you actually want to be searching in a flat manner, you also have this other interface where you can see all of the different results that have been done in each of the pages. And you can already start seeing that we can actually get a listing of all of the different people that had surnames bilateral with each of the names. And finally, we can have a statistical view of the result, where we can see that actually bilateral, you can have a person called Francisco, Pedro, Narcisos, or Jose. And you can find the matches, where are the pages, where is the scores. You can see how they have been associated throughout the years, where are the hits, etc., etc. And we also present you with a statistical plot regarding where they are. Furthermore, you can still go here, and once you find a circle of the entity, you can basically click on one and then end up on the actual page, which is exactly the same one that I was clicking before. You can see these results as a scatter map, as a heat map. Here, there's only results with a high probability due to how the model is behaving, or actually show you in a histogram representation. Okay, you can basically also search for something more, maybe like Antonio. And then automatically you get all the text and you get the analytics for it. This one has, of course, a lot more impact, and you can see how it is associated all of the possible Antonios throughout the whole of the collection. In fact, you can find here there's a whole big page which actually has 13 Antonios in it. And here you can have it and see it here where all of the Antonios are here written. Of course, furthermore, on top of this, we can actually even do semantic search. Sorry. We can do semantic search. We can search for something like cuidado de huérfanos y niños abandonados. So we're working for people, for kids that were abandoned or are orphaned. We mark the semantic and then we click on it. Then we automatically get the results with pages that have something regarding or similar to this. Sometimes it's an incorrect thing, like, happens in Google too, where we have talking about abandonadas por falta de persona, but he's actually talking about roads, or he's talking here about people that have been de beneficencia, which is sometimes a place where orphan kids were sent. The third hit actually is a good one, talking about huérfanos menores de edad y pobres. So basically, you can have your semantic search like in Google, where you don't actually know what you're searching for, on top of your historical documents, because from the probabilistic index, we can do semantic embeddings of the probabilistic information too. Okay? But after we made this all possible to be able to have and attack the collections through these 4 types of searches, we were thinking, okay, but what next? Because the curators, the archives, wanted to be able to do more on top of the platform. They wanted to be able to progressively curate the collection as they go, so that they would improve how things were. So in this case, we provided with a series of probabilistic editors where they can basically not only have all of the text, but actually see if there's more than one hypothesis and where. For example, I will go back to the demonstrator. And here, for example, you can see we can go to a book. I open the editor on the book, and not only do I have the words selected, but also I can go through all of the words. The ones that have been highlighted in blue are because they have been validated by a paleographer or an expert regarding this. And then once they are validated, then they go to inform or improve the index for next searches. We have here a heat map where you can basically go through all of the pages and you can see where there are pages that have more ambiguity, because since we have the confidence scores for each of the hypotheses, we can tell you where the model has more ambiguity, is less certain, and maybe it should be better for you to review what is there written. Every time you click on something, you can get here like more than one hypothesis, and you get auto completion of the possible things you can do. And also it helps you with the transcription in case maybe it's something that is hard to read and you want to be able to see more possibilities. Also, which is something that is very interesting, is the whole idea of structured data, like, for example, forms. So we adapted our editor so that it can also work with forms. Again, here you can see that you can basically see the whole form represented in an editor. And again, you have the heat map with the words that require you to review things more thoroughly. For example, the San Vicente, you can go and then basically correct it if you want to. And then you press intro, and then it's been updated for until the end of times, hopefully. And the other type of collection that is very recurring in historical archives are tables. Sometimes there are very modern and nice tables like the ones that we are seeing here. And sometimes there are historical tables are much harder to read and to access to. But in the end, we also wanted to be able to provide the users, the archives, a way to not only receive the transcription from the collection, from the model, but also be able to curate it further, to correct it if they want to see where there's places where there's ambiguity, so they know which ones they need to actually review in more detail or not. Furthermore, once you have updated and done all of this, you can still go and extract all of this information from the system. You can extract it with our own format, which is a JSON format, or in Alto XML, in Page, in HOCR, or even in a IIIF annotation list. Even, for example, for this table, you can actually even extract it as a CSV file, for example. And then you can go and open it in LibreOffice or your editor of choosing. Automatically, you have the table. And then from here, you can start doing, no, I don't want any more tips, thank you. You can actually go and do more graphs or whatever you need on top of that table that you've just edited and done. Okay. So when we're done with the editors and after the searches, we did the editing, what we wanted to do is what more value can we add on top of the probabilistic indexing? Because we felt that sometimes the archiver doesn't get information from the models, and I see a lot of applications where the models are giving you some information, but they don't give you the confidence. And then on top of that, you start wanting to create even more layers of intelligence on top of that, which is a bit akin to creating a castle on top of sand, right? But what we wanted to do is let's have a document intelligence layer that works correctly with probabilistic indexing. So you will be able to actually see the confidence levels of even the results that you're achieving from the higher level of capabilities. So what we do is that we are able to automatically extract from any type of document. We segment the books into logical units of documents. And from those documents, we are able to extract the person, the place, the event, the organization, and if there are any relationships between them. And we provide for each of these things that we say that are there in the document, we actually provide you with an anchor to the actual page and line, because we believe that in order to ensure quality of the data, and that is something that is very dear to our hearts because we know that it is very dear to the hearts of archivers, we must ensure quality. So whenever we say there is something, when a human expert did a documental description, you knew he was a professional and he was doing things correctly. But when you are working with artificial intelligence, you need to have an idea of why he's saying that and how can I go and review it. And that's why we base all of our document intelligence on top of the actual idea of anchoring into the ink. If there is not an anchor into a page and line, we don't say that that entity exists. For example, here you have a book from the Real Maestrante de Caballería de Ronda, which has been automatically segmented into the DLUs, as you can see here. This has been automatically segmented and has been reflected here inside of our visor. And then you can actually go and manage things, and you go to one of the DLUs, and automatically we've generated the type of document that it is. We provided a title with a confidence score. We also provided automatically a summary and a listing of persons, places, organizations, etc., etc. You can go to a person and you can see that there are ones that are in blue and the anchors are in green because we've been validating them against the document. And there are others that are still pending to be validated. Validating is as easy as going, pressing on the magnifying glass, and then seeing if that guy or that person is actually there. For example, Don José Fernández Prieta y Muñoz. Is he here? Yes, he is. He starts on this line and ends on that one. So that anchor works. It's okay. Well, of course it works because he was already validated. Let's go to one that maybe wasn't validated. Here, for example, Pedro González. Here we have this on this line, Pedro González. Okay, I'm going to verify this anchor. I'm going to stage and close it. And then it's been automatically updated and validated as a good entity. Okay, so now we know that Pedro González existed, but because the AI told us what it was and then gave us the chance to go and review in the page where it actually was and verify it. We can do exactly the same for places, and we also represent this information in a graphical map. You can see here the ones that are in green are the ones that we have verified already in the listing. The ones are yellow is that are pending to be validated. The ones in gray are half and half. We can do the same for organizations, for example. You can go see here, you get the Santa Inquisición. We press on the page, and you can see here that it's pressed Santa Inquisición on this page. We can verify it, we can stage and close. Exactly the same thing for all of the entities. For events, we have a listing of the narratives that is there present. All of the events that happen, then the marriages, etc., or also the relationships that happen during the whole collection. Like, for example, it is indicated that Don José Fernández Prieta y Muñoz was father of Don Alonso Raimundo Hernández Prieta. Okay, and all of these relationships, we can also furthermore represent them as a nice graph, so you can explore things in a more graphical manner if that is your inclination. Although some of these documents, like especially all of these nobility proof documents, they have such a big listing of genealogies and how everybody's intertwined in order to prove the nobility of that person, that these type of graphs are quite complex, as you can see. Of course, all of these documents, all of this document intelligence, you can see that we are providing confidence scores for each one of them, because we basically are matching what the model provides against what we got from the probabilistic indexing. And we have sort of like an adversarial situation where each other keeps the other one in check. So this actually improves very well for us to be able to notify, to alert the archiver, the professional, where are things that he should be looking at, because we are unsure depending on the score. Of course, in the end, time is finite and you can only review so much. Once you've done with any collection, and you can see here that I've basically extracted this whole book and generated this, at Transcriptorium, we understand that we are not working alone in the ecosystem. There is a whole set of standards and ecosystems that are working there. So in that case, what we are able to do is we are able to extract all of this information that is there present as a IIIF server. So Archaic is also a IIIF compliant server. What this means is that, for example, here I have a collection for the Diputación de La Coruña, and you can see here that is basically we have the actas, the minutiae of all of the reunions that they were having in the deputy, automatically segmented with the transcription, etc., etc. And all of that document we can provide via the standard IIIF interface into, for example, a Mirador review, or even the actual solution that Derek was showing you. You would be able to actually attack our IIIF instance and then extract information from here. And from here, you can basically launch searches in the same way, which would be attacking our search engine, but providing the results via the IIIF solution, as you can see. And then we can have the Antonio here, there present. We also have, for example, here, another Antonio here, the two Antonios, and you can also see the actual annotations, which are the transcriptions of the document here. So you can actually read the transcription presented there on top of the IIIF with the annotation server, and also you have the whole index, because since we have segmented the whole book into individual documents, that index can be offered via the IIIF standard, and then you can actually see each of the different minutiae, where you can see that the signatures represents that the last one was ending, and here we start a new one, right? Again, the same thing, the same thing. Furthermore, we can also actually show you the same navigation and regarding the geographical places. You can also see it through the NavPlace IIIF interface here, and then you can basically click on any of the maps and even go to the actual page where that was represented. For example, Santiago de Compostela is here in the Santiago. All of this DLU information can also be extracted and reviewed via Atom. So you can also actually, oops, I need to log in. We also offer integration into Atom. We're also doing extraction and integration with Rico and also Themis for our Fresco systems. And you can basically see that the same information that we have in Archaic, we are upstream loading it into the preservation systems. So you have the same list of places, the list of people, events, etc., etc. And then basically we are complying with a lot of standards, and I'm running short of time, and I want you to be able to answer me, provide me with some questions. It's all there in the website. Also, you can connect your archaic server to Model Context Protocol and attack it with Claude if you want it. Here, for example, I asked it to do a genealogic review of my surname, Bosch, and it basically tells me where everything is written, and also providing me anchors to each of the books and pages. But this is not required if you want to use any type of commercial agent. In the end, all of the archive platform can be deployed into your systems. We use our own models for handwritten text recognition and probabilistic indexing. And for entity recognition, although we have our own hardness, all of the models that we are using currently are open and can be deployed in your own machines. So your archive still stays your archive. Thank you very much. I would keep talking. I have more things to show, but I think it's best that I stop now and give answers to your questions, if possible.
Great, thanks so much. And same thing as last time. Feel free to raise questions directly or chat them in.
What is the structure of the data files which stores the possible variations? So what happens here is that when you have the output of a handwritten text recognition model, you usually end up with a confusion matrix, and that confusion matrix ends up in a graph type of interface. Basically, in the end, what happens that we are storing everything openly in JSON documents that you can basically extract and review what's actually inside of it. So everything, all of the stuff that we are showing you in Archaic, you can basically deploy it and in a year's time decide you don't want to work anymore with Archaic and then extract automatically all of the data in JSON formats that are readable. And also you can still extract the transcriptions in Alto, in Page, in IIIF, etc., etc. But of course, the problem we have with probabilistic indexing is that none of the standards are able to actually provide or contain the probabilistic information. And that is why we created our own document format, but it's still in an open document format, so you can still download it and use it. This is a very, really impressive. I'm not sure if you've seen. Thank you very much, Sarah and Ben. Owen Quinn, a question for Vicent. I was reading about your DLUs. I see that they are typed. What is the most interesting and usual DLU type you have had to figure out how to interpret? Well, actually, I have the good thing that I have an excellent team of archivers and paleographers. So usually they tell me the ontology of types that I should apply to each of the collections. So in that case, I think the most funnier ones is the one for nobility proof, which is something that I had not actually encountered before actually this collection for Real Maestranza de Caballera de Ronda. But usually I don't have to think that much on those things because I'm surrounded by great people that actually give me the ontology of type of DLUs that can happen and what is the best way to prompt them, which, by the way, you can change the ontology, you can change the prompts, you can change all of that from the administration. Hello, no, okay, that's I thought. A question for you? Okay, I think I've answered all of the questions. Would love to answer any more questions if you have them. And Also, you can do grounded Q&A, which is something that I haven't shown you. If you don't want to actually attack an agent outside, you can do Q&A on a collection. For example, I asked it here on 3 pages of Spanish to do a summary in German and also cite the pages where it says that each of the things in this paragraph, and then you can see that you have the entities are also anchored to the ink, etc., etc. I might have missed this, but what languages do you offer? No, okay. So the thing is that we are very serious regarding data sovereignty, and we train models specifically for each collection and each archive. We welcome when one archive allows us or tell us that they can use their collection to train another collection, and we use that data if we have explicit permission to do so. But usually we train each of the collections specifically because we have found that when we train the collection, at least with 100 or 200 pages of ground truth of the actual collection, we always achieve the best results. So in that case, we are totally agnostic to language because we can train a model and represent a model for any of the languages. We've done French, Hungarian, Old Swedish, German, we've done Malta, we've done Spanish from the 13th century to the 18th century, 19th century. We've done work with Hindi, with Arabic. We've covered, I think, basically a lot of the languages that are available. Of course, there are still a lot more languages. We work with mixed languages. In fact, in Real Maestranza Caballera de Ronda, you have examples that have words that are printed in English and they've been penciled in with descriptions in Spanish because the person from Spain was trying to complete things.
Great. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our time today. Thanks so much, Vincent, and Derek as well for the fascinating presentations today. And thanks everyone for joining. As always, feel free to reach out with any questions, and the emails for both organizations are in the chat here. And call everyone. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.